Iraq because of all the mistakes that have been made.
All right, some are confused about our policy in Iraq, but the president is not. When I met with Mr. Bush today in the Oval Office with a group of conservative commentators, he was absolutely resolute about winning the war. He said, and I quote, "I made the right decision on Saddam Hussein. We must stay on the offense. We must help this government. We will succeed," end quote. Joining me now is our great friend PJ Crowley, Senior Fellow at the Center for American Progress, and Ian Brimmer, President of the Eurasia Group and author of The J-Curve, a new way to understand why nations rise and fall. Gentlemen, thank you. Ian, welcome to the program. I want to ask you at the very beginning. In our meeting today in the Oval Office, and I guess he mentioned this at the news conference, Mr. Bush is heavily invested in Prime Minister Maliki. In fact, he said to us he said we could force him out, but that would be futile. Ian, is that what you're hearing? Because I'm hearing a lot of coup plot talk coming out. Least.
Well, I think I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing coup plot talk from everyone because, the more you talk about him, the more people are saying, oh, are they shoring him up because he's really in trouble? So that's a no-win situation. But also, I'm hearing talk about who might be useful in a shadow cabinet. And I have heard some talk from Americans on the ground that's a consideration. So if Maliki goes under, and it's not just a question of if Bush pulls him out, it's a question if he just is seen to be unsustainable. We already know that Sadr and the Mehdi army on the ground in Iraq actually took out a town. Took over a town, and Maliki, despite the fact that he's being told to go after a lot of the local insurgents, is having a hard time doing it because Sadr has 30 supporters, members of parliament, that Maliki himself doesn't want to lose. So he's really between a rock and a hard place here, and his position is becoming increasingly untenable. There's no question.
PJ, let's just go into this. Now, look, Mr. Bush is very steadfast about Maliki. He went so far as to say, by the way, we will not give him a firm timetable. All this talk about standards and timetables is kind of a moving target. But is it possible, without American assent, without American support, that Maliki could be toppled by some kind of strongman coup? And that would be the ultimate disaster scenario.
Well, could it be? Is it possible? Of course it's possible.
Seriously possible?
However,
without our support?
Obviously that would be a dagger in the heart of the president's greater Middle East strategy, that we put a democratic government in place and it doesn't survive. Certainly today, the president, certainly in contrast to many anonymous administration voices the last couple of weeks that were suggesting that Maliki was a weak leader, he is heavily invested in the current prime minister. But the dilemma is for Maliki, exactly as we saw today. In Iraq, you had U.S. military forces going into Sadr city. Maliki was forced to say this was not an authorized raid because it goes after Maliki's political base, including
what was the outcome of the Sadr city invasion? What happened? Where are we on that? Who is running it now?
Well, critically, as the president laid out his benchmarks today, the most critical one is going after the militias, including the Mahdi militia of al-Sadr. That goes right into the heart of Maliki's political base. So if Maliki follows the benchmarks that have been laid out, he puts himself at great political risk.
Ian, let me pursue this for a second. I will put my cards on the table, as I always do. I support the president's mission in Iraq. I want to win. If I have any frustration, it's because we're not winning. When I asked Mr. Bush how we can measure winning, how we can measure what benchmarks we might use for victory, he said, that's a hard thing. He understands the frustration. Ian, where does that go? I'm a guy who wants to win. I don't have any evidence that we're winning. How do you do that?
Let me give you a historical example, right? The Soviet Union collapses, and everyone says they want Russia to become democratic. They want it to join the WTO. They want it to become a partner of the West. Russia makes mistakes. The United States loses interest. And at the end of the second Clinton administration, everyone asks, who lost Russia? Well, we're heading towards the second Bush administration. Iraq has become a failed state, wants it to become democratic. Same thing with Afghanistan. And we're now starting to ask, who lost Iraq? Who lost Afghanistan? These are very reasonable questions. The point is that it takes, a decade more in countries like these with committed troops, security, extraordinary cash, a propitious security environment in order to bring these countries towards, sort of democracy, openness, and economic support. The political will does not exist for that in Britain, in NATO, or in the United States. That's what Bush is fighting against.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thing with all the dissatisfaction about the war. A lot of this frustration is coming from people like myself on the right who want to win. About 25% of people that wish we hadn't gone in the first place and don't care and want us to withdraw. But I think people do want to win. See, what I want is, and I'm not going to get this, I want a U.S. grant to win at Vicksburg. And then I can point to that and say, look, we are winning. That's the problem. There's no Vicksburg here. I don't know whether there's a U.S. grant either.
Well, here's the problem. The president wants victory. All Americans want victory. The question is how you define it and what is the role of military forces to achieve it.
Kick al-Sadr's butt. But again, take that chubby little fat guy and take him out. Throw him in jail or worse. But that's what I want to say. Take him out.
The president laid out, who is the enemy here? The enemy can be 5 components. And can the United States influence all 5 of the components? They're the Baathists, they're the nationalists, they're the criminals, they're al-Qaeda, and they're the Shia death squads. Can we handle all of those through military means? No. By political means, maybe. So no one's talking about cutting and running. It's talking about the military aspect of this relative to the absence of a political strategy, which is the key to success.
Well, we're not going anywhere. Ian, I'll close with you. Bush made it very clear our commitment is strong. I don't think the election is going to influence him as much as I might have thought before I heard him today. Ian, give me 15 seconds. Oil revenues, dividing them up Alaska style among the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shias. That's what Bush wants. Can that happen?
I don't think it can, because I don't think you can actually get that cash from the Shia to the Sunni. I think what ends up happening is the Sunni get their money from Saudi charities and others in the Arab world who are benefiting from high oil prices, but that comes with serious political strings. Long term, that's a problem for the U.S. and the region.
All right, thanks ever so much, Ian Bremmer, PJ Crowley. As always, coming up, your money, your vote, 13 days.